All right, right. So just like we did in Halliburton and maybe in other companies, I put in the agenda safety moment, and that's just like a placeholder while people are settling in and grabbing their coffee or settling in. Then we just talk about safety to keep it, as a starting point. So that's where that comes from. So just as a quick safety moment, of course, notwithstanding the health emergency, but be aware that we are having very cold weather, as we all know. And if we are working outside, just a heads up that our dexterity, specifically our finger dexterity, gets compromised. We don't think about it, but it does in the cold weather. So that, for example, if you're putting out an antenna or something like this, especially if you're elevated, with a ladder or something like this, now you've got energy, potential energy that can actually be let go and can hurt you. And it can all be brought about by maybe a slip of the fingers when normally you would grab a hold to that ladder. And now, because of the compromised dexterity, you can actually be in a situation of peril. So just a heads up, again, a quick safety moment, reminding us to be aware, especially if we're working outdoors with finger dexterity.
Stephen, this is
Yes,
Dom.
sir.
I think
Hey,
the other
Dom.
thing, if we're talking about weather, is that I think we
Mhm.
always should be weather wise. I know right now we're talking about cold, but there's been instances I've been involved helping out, and weather's come up, bad weather, and nobody was monitoring the weather. And I think when we do things like PODA, Museum Shift Weekend, the 2 field days, somebody needs to be watching the weather. It could be on YouTube, it could be weather underground, whatever. It could be a scanner with the National Weather Service. But I think, especially when we're getting into thunderstorm season, we have to be looking at the weather. In the comments, back to you.
No, spot on, spot on. And of course, what's the normal saying that they tell you when you move to Texas? It's if you don't like the weather, just wait a couple of minutes, and it's going to change radically. And it does indeed. We saw that, as a matter of fact, at Tom's point, during field day. We're all setting up, and everything was hunky dory, and all of a sudden this front blew through, and everybody had to. It was of course the rain, but it was more importantly the lightning that was the risk. So we all went and secured in our vehicles until the front came through. Right. So as far as the business side of the meeting, I'll get the ball rolling, and people can chime in if I'm missing something there. We do have Winter Field Day coming up. This is this weekend here, and so far we've got a couple of folks, Dom and Ralph, tentative to meet us up there in Stephen F. Austin State Park. So far it looks good. So far we've got 3 folks. It's going to be really laid back, so no stress about that. We're going to try to make it a PODA activation and also a Winter Field Day activation. And Dom was saying that there's a third service. What was that, Dom? That other one? It
Okay,
was
there is a Aries event going on in districts
Aries.
1 and 14, but I think what we're doing, what we're trying to provide, we're going to be too far away. I would not worry about it, but I'm planning on bringing a high-powered 2-meter rig so that we can participate. We can maybe get some techs involved. We also can work those the frequencies for winter heat on 2 meters. So
Winter Heat.
I'm
Yeah.
going to concentrate on this project with on 2 meters with my 80-watt rig.
Yeah, sounds great. So again, it's going to be just a day in the park is what it's going to be shaping up to be, and play radio. So you're more than welcome to come along. Of course, it's at Stephen F. Austin State Park. They've got a day use area that's quite nice if you've been there. And unfortunately, if you're not a member, you don't have their little Texas State Parks passport, which by the way is very good deal. They'll probably ask for a $4 donation or something like that. So it's still
That's nothing.
it should be okay. So anyway,
When is
so you're
this?
more than welcome to come along.
When is this, Steve?
Right. It's
Saturday the
this
28th.
coming Saturday. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Saturday, the 29th, next Saturday.
Next Saturday. Okay.
Yeah, my wife and I never understood it. It's this Saturday or next Saturday. It's the Saturday that's, yeah. It's the 29th. There you go.
Next Saturday.
That narrows it down. So that's that Saturday, and we're thinking about meeting there at about 12. And that would be noon.
At Stephen F.
And
Austin.
then,
Okay.
yeah, and Winter Field Day would start at 1 p.m. So folks that want to start, let me go ahead and let in Donald. Folks
Just
that
be
want to go ahead and go
Just be
ahead.
careful about road construction on I-10. They're winding I-10 through there, so you might want to check the tech stock construction advisories for on the internet.
That's a good point. Guys, what I've found is that when you get to Brookshire, the construction starts as you're heading out west.
Yep.
You can't take the detour over there. Siri will probably steer you right. And anyway, so you take the detour there and you go through some really nice rolling hills and really nice countryside of this part of the country. And then before you know it, you stumble upon the Stephen F. Austin State Park entrance. So anyway, however you get there, all roads lead to Rome. So there we are. Right. So besides that, the only other bit of housekeeping I believe that we've got, I think we've got the Zoom redoing or resubscribing for this coming year, probably coming around in February. So that's coming up. So just ask you to keep it in the back of your minds if we think that there's value added in continuing with our Zoom subscription. I think there is, but of course that does represent, I think it's about a $90 expense by the club. So just to think about.
Okay. Well, I would move
Right.
that we vote on it right now. Because I
Okay,
don't.
do we have a second?
I second.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Any objections? Hal's not there, but I mean, I think we should, it's for the foreseeable future, I think we should have it, or at least for the next year.
Good point. Dom, you need it. You said something?
I said second.
No. Negative.
Okay.
Dom, N5TCB, you want to add something?
My thing is, we don't know what this virus is going to do, so I think using Zoom is a good idea. Or if we need an impromptu meeting real quick, you can send out the notice. We're good. I think that there's some, and two, having Zoom with even a live meeting. There's sometimes people are sick or cannot come because of car issues or whatever. I think having that as a backup is a great idea.
Yeah, I think Ralph is, the guys that are living far away, I think it makes a lot of sense. And we've had pretty good participation with, with that. So I don't think there's really much of a debate. Hal?
Oh, we had a discussion this morning at the breakfast meeting and said that a Zoom with a camera on somebody doing a hands-on demo would be really good. Even if you're in the room where they're presenting the demo, everybody can go onto their camera phones and see the close-up.
That's a good point, and that dovetails into the next point that I wanted to bring up. I would be more than happy to hold a camera and zoom in or zoom out of people, but since I'm the president, I can't do that because I'm talking. We need to think about who is going to inherit this great honor for the next year.
Right. Well, I think that's an easy task to deal with, I mean, just having a camera on a tripod or somebody, whoever's moderating the Zoom at the meeting can do that. I mean, it's just not that, I mean, we have that going on all the time, and you can give it to more than one person and let them walk around, I mean, it's
right. So I think
more interesting.
So Mark brings a good point, but my point was missed. I think I'm trying to weasel out of the presidency.
Right.
So
Yeah.
let
We
me
get
just be
that.
blunt about it. Right. So anybody else that wants to take this baby on is bull by the horns.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question: who's in the bathroom right now? So we can nominate them for president.
Yeah. Who's not? Well, we have.
Raise your
while
hand
we're
if you're not
talking,
here.
while we're talking about sort of officers and administration, as far as the business side, I think we should talk about once we get over some of the other stuff, we should talk about the management of the club going on, because I have some other stuff related to that we need to talk about. And let me just see who's KF5IK just showed up here. Okay, so Did, what, what other administrative stuff did you have, Steve? Because I've got the treasurer report, the secretary's report, and then some other stuff.
No, that was pretty much it. Yeah, besides these advices about the advertising of the winter field day and so on.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
before we
upcoming
move to you,
activities.
Mark, I believe we had Ken who wanted to
Yeah.
go ahead.
We had a motion and a second. We're going to go ahead and vote for this, going ahead and doing the Zoom for another year because I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's go ahead and
Okay, yeah.
conclude the current business on the table there.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
so far we've had debate. Does anybody else want to chime in about Zoom, pro or against? If not, we'll go ahead and close debate. Speak now. 3, 2, 1. Mark, nobody spoke. So we go ahead and close the
Speaking now or
debate.
forever hold the peace.
Yeah, done did. So, okay, so let's go ahead. Everybody in favor of getting Zoom for the next year, raise your hand.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, just
All
by the look of
opposed?
hands. All opposed? Okay, pretty much the ayes have it. So we're going to go ahead and pursue Zoom for the next year. Okay, that was the only other order of business that I had there, Mark. So back to you for your treasurer's report, please.
Okay, so
Actually,
what-
before we do that, Mark, our treasurer, of course, is Rick. Could you give us an
Well-
update? You seem to be in touch with him.
right, okay, so here's, so I think let's talk about officers and administration of the club going forward. So we typically have, nominations for officers, and Steve, you have expressed in the past that this was a 1 or 2 year task, and I think that we want to try to, going forward, limit the officers to a 2 consecutive term role, unless they're agreeable otherwise, or there's some extenuating circumstances. So we don't want perpetual office holders like we have in some other clubs, right, Mike? So Mike's been the treasurer of the Echo Club for 22 years or something like that. So
Wow. Wow.
that's a long time. And the current president has been the president for 9 years. So that's a bit long in the tooth on that.
I think
So-
Marty's been president of Echo longer than I've been a member. I've never known another president other than Marty.
Right, that's right. So
So I mean that's fine. I think a 2-year assignment would be fine. I mean, all kidding aside, I think it's a blast. So I wouldn't have a problem with being 1 more year. But by the same token, I don't want to be stealing the thunder of somebody else that wants the experience and wants to try this. So I leave it up to you guys.
I will suggest that you do not limit the treasurer because of the paperwork involved in changing banks and moving things around and signatures. If a treasurer wants to keep doing it, and it's easy to do, just don't have to kick them out after 2 years.
right. Well,
Everybody else fine.
Well, let's talk about that. So Steve wants to relinquish his term. So I think what we should do is, now that everybody's on notice, we'll send out a query to others about who's willing to at least try to step into that role. I mean, it's mainly a coordination role, and only a few people have been carrying the administration of the club for a number of years now. So it's time to, get some other blood in there to just, we can, of course, organize it to sort of set the agenda. Actually, with Zoom and internet and stuff, it's much easier to come up with topics and things like that we really had been struggling with in years past. But, it's a bit tiring to keep carrying the ball on a little bit of this. So as far as the treasurer role, Rick Gaffrey is going to step down as treasurer for 2022. So he's been doing it for 11 years and has some other issues that he wants to address. And so in the absence of agreement with the rest of the club, I've agreed to take on that role along with the secretary, since it's basic, there's more work on the secretary side anyway, just keeping track of stuff, membership and all of that. So I'm already on the banking, on the
Signature card.
authorized signatory, for the bank. And I have to keep track of the rosters anyway. So I'm going to take that from him and consolidate those roles so that it's easy to pass on to somebody else. So the other thing is, since I do the VE stuff, it's basically the same work. And it's just, I do it every month basically. So it's really not that difficult. So, but I think the roles need to be consolidated so that the administration of the paperwork can be simplified. And then we don't have a lot of secretarial tasks here. I mean, Steve has been taking on a good portion of the secretarial tasks by putting in quick minutes and that sort of thing. We don't really have a lot of official tasks that we've got. We have insurance, we have membership, we have reimbursements for nominal expenses, and then just the few receipts and disbursed insurance and all that. There's just not a lot going on there. So we're going to do that and then package it up so that it's easy to transfer for somebody else in the future.
Okay,
that's
Mark.
what's
So when is the election? When are we going to be selecting officers? So we're doing it now, or we're doing it
anytime.
next month?
We can do it. We have to receive nominations for.
Okay.
So I would say it should, we should send out emails and nominate, emails saying, hey, we're having elections. And then I would say next month, we could say, hey, elections are here. Or we can call a special meeting for elections, or either way.
Right, or we just chase after people in the email. Everybody's on the email or on the reflector, and it's really just a matter of chasing after people to pin them down. But I just wanted to let everybody know that was going to happen. Rick is probably not going to participate in the near future. So, but I'll see him here in the next week or two.
How is he doing? How is he doing, Mark?
He's recovering slowly. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
So we'll see. But I'll see him, and I'll get the lowdown on what's going on when I see him. So as some of you guys know, Rick had cancer surgery here a while back, and I think it's just been a tough go. So
Okay, so we have a question on the chat right quick. And of course, we're asking for everybody to mail in their dues. And mine, at least the envelope is made. I need to put a check in it and send it. But Hal was asking, was my check received for dues?
Yes,
who
it
is
was.
receiving these? Okay.
well,
Done.
I was going to let me do the treasurer report here real quick. So,
Okay.
So right now we have 3,140, what 3,140 and 13 cents. And then for the folks that have paid up right now, for which checks are received in 2022 and not covering some carryover that we had from 2021. So we have John Aaron, Seth Alvers, Richard Arvedson, Gus Bernard, Don Berger, Larry Days, Rick DeFray, Paul Metcalf, Mike Knoll, Bob Norris, William Polchuk, Cindy Tyndall, Carl Hacker, Charlie Larrabee, and Hal Herdklotz. So those guys are everyone's all paid. I think that's, and then we have 17 total that are paid up through 2022 so far, and that does include Dexter Lewis had paid up through 2022. I cut him a break because he was the Transtar representative he paid in September. And then William Polchuk had doubled up on his for 2021. We got David Barron had also paid through 2022. And then we had Carl Hacker and his wife had a family membership, and he lives in North Carolina. So he's just a carryover, not a carryover, but he's a legacy member. And then, so that's where we sit right now. There are
cool.
there's 57 there was 57 members paid up through that were current. No, 49. There's 49 total members that were current through 2021 last year. And then we have a series of I don't know, probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We have 13, 14, 15, 17 folks that were over 2 years outside of that. And then there's 5 people that were prior to that their emails are bad, and that we have they're either moved, their emails are bad, or they're not responding. So that's kind of the status of the membership and the dues.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate that. Do we have any comments on the treasurer and membership report? Go ahead, Gary.
Right. On the website, do you have the address to which you send the checks for membership, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And is it $20 or $25? I can't remember.
20.
Oh, 20.
20.
Okay.
So those go to Don Berger there, who's the administrator of the he's the club attorney, so to speak.
But
yeah,
we
on
make the check
It's on
payable
there.
to.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
so all
payable
the
to the Oak
information's in
Forest, payable to the Oak Forest Club, and there's a form there. So
Yeah,
if you
I've
fill
seen
that
the
out,
form.
and just make sure that the form is there so that we have your information, phone number, email, likes and don't, affiliations, et cetera, et cetera.
Great information. Do we have any additional comments or questions regarding treasury or membership? If not, yeah, somebody was claiming, but we'll go ahead.
He's barking there.
He's barking. We won't listen to him. So okay. Well, again, thank you very much, Mark. That was very, very nice. And Donald, thank you very much for stepping up and helping us out with the receiving of these dues. Okay. Any other business that we have to go on before we move on to the presentations? I think we have something from Ralph. Go ahead.
I just have something I want to throw out for people to think about, and we'll discuss it at a subsequent meeting. One of the things that I have been hoping for and have yet to observe in any of the Houston clubs is outreach to the public in any significant way. People do field day, they hang up a sign, it's not really advertised. Scouts, schools, youth groups, helping people who express an interest in getting a license. I know that when I said I was going to give a technician's class a couple of years ago, there were some people who told me, we will not allow you to have it. And I told them to bugger off, that I was doing the class and did not need any resources from anybody, just announcing it. So I'd like people to think about whether or not this club, which is registered as a special purpose club, which means outreach and helping, is going to live up to that, and in what form that might take. So conversation next time.
That's a good point. I mean, that's a good point. Go ahead, Gary.
How many VEs do we have on the roster right now? other than Mark?
And then we have Paul Rubin. So
Okay,
that's
have
one,
a
two, three,
bunch. Okay,
four.
so you can give,
We have
but
probably like 10 or so, 10,
Five.
12.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about 10, yeah.
I want to remind Mark that he was at the VE testing session at the Echo Club when I got my amateur extra license many years ago. 6, I don't know how. Mark, have you forgotten that? Oh, your audio's off.
Perfect sound.
I
for you,
have,
Mark.
I have actually, but we have 12 registered VEs here, actually. So usually and then we typically have enough uh, members, for VEs, but yeah, we have plenty of VEs.
Okay,
And then, no, I don't recall. I mean, I have hundreds of people on
I
my
know. I thought as
email
much.
list, but I mean, I know you we know each other
Well, from back when I was a member of,
casually from years ago.
well, for Oak Forest, I was a member of the Oak Forest Club, 10 or 12 years ago when
Yeah, back-
Rusty was in charge. Hello, Rusty. He says he's there, but I don't know. Is he really? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, he's on the phone now.
I'm just muted and turned off.
Okay. You're not ghosting us.
Yeah.
So
Just one other item. I'm talking about the VE testing. So we've lost our spot at Transtar for the near future. They have, I think we talked for the November meeting, for those that were there, the Homeland Security or wherever is having their suite remodeled. And so they've moved in the other half of the conference center there and turned off the displays and everything else. So and other groups are in there. I just had a email chat back and forth with Alan Isaacson over there about reserving the room, and they says, well, it's going to be tied up there until March or April. And then I said, well, that we'll put in a reservations for February and kind of see how it goes for I typically do a 6-month reservation, and then we'll just see what it is. The COVID threat levels up at red now, so there's a lot of restrictions in the building, but I don't know that is necessarily a showstopper. But for VE testing, typically I start in February or March for testing, and so we've lost that spot now. So
was that a monthly schedule?
Yeah, so it usually goes concurrently with the club meeting, and we have been testing in the past when we couldn't get into Transtar at the Oak Forest Park, up by me outside, and that's worked out pretty good. There's now a lot more options for testing for people. Before we were just about it, frankly. And so we'll kind of see how it goes, and we'll see how we do have alternate places to give testing, and my office over Highway 6 is open. We can do it locally. We can probably do it in Transtar if we get it sorted out. But just want to make the logistics easier for myself and for the VEs. So we'll see how that goes. But we will plan on starting that back up, and see how it goes.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. And yeah, so again, VEs, we appreciate your 1 second there, Robert. We appreciate the work that you guys do, and that dovetails back into what Ralph was mentioning, and it's been expressed by other members as well. And I thought that it was a good idea just to bring it up to everybody here. We are the club. I mean, each one of us is the Oak Forest Amateur Radio Club, but yet we see that, for example, for certain specific activities such as, I don't know, Museum Day, Pi Day 3.14, and all this, March 14th. We seem to have the same, the usual suspects, throwing their hat in the ring. That doesn't necessarily bode well for a long-term sustainable club. So you're encouraged in the strongest terms to go ahead and just participate. Now, of course, if you're traveling, if you're whatever, life gets in the way, sure, it's understandable. But please do go ahead and take this as my personal request that we need you and that participate. Be it the Dickens on the Strand or the Battleship, whatever we do over there in Battleship, Texas, or in Galveston Bay, whatever, or Pi Day or whatever. Do get involved, please. We are the club, and if we don't, throw our hats in the ring again, subject to our schedules, we become very centric on one person, and that's the one thing that Mark was alluding to earlier. He's going to be doing more of a containerizing or containerization of the actual position, what it entails, and so on, so that other folks can assume the mantle. It's just we rely on everybody. So that's the soapbox, and hopefully I made a little bit of sense. We need to all volunteer. We need to all participate. Okay, I think we had Robert. Go ahead, Robert, before we move on to the next reports.
Okay, for meeting places, we thought about maybe checking with some of the volunteer fire department organizations around. I know like Sci-Fair, Spring, stuff like that. They have facilities that the community can use, because those are our community buildings. And as long as you make reservations to use it and it's used for a community effort, like our club is, we can get into these locations in their training rooms and hold our meetings. I would imagine we just have to check with them, make sure it's on their schedule.
Okay,
Well, I
good
think
point. Mark, any comments?
Well, we have plenty of fire stations right in this location. I haven't looked into those as as options. We can certainly do that.
Okay.
In the meantime, though, I think the size of the room and just the logistics of it, I think, is a consideration. So
I think the logistics would be the main thing. But the size of the training rooms, I've utilized them before for putting on training classes when I was doing police in-service schools, and their facility is actually large enough to put on a class without a problem for us, and even have room to do our testing. So it's just, like I say, the logistics of how close it is to everybody and what area of town you want to go in.
Well, yeah, and what I mean by the size of the room is whether or not, the comfort level of people to actually be in rooms under the current, conditions. That's what we got the Zoom for. But I think I think we have to be straightforward with how big these rooms are and what distances there are, and just the overall exposure risk for some of us. So, but that's certainly we can look into it. There's a couple of fire stations right up here in Oak Forest. Kind of see what we got.
Okay, we're getting some background there. Hang on one second.
Gary?
There. Hang on a second. We got Dom. You're next.
Oh.
Dom, are you still there?
Guys, I have some new business, so I'll get to me when you finish this business.
Will do. Somebody, I think Barry mentioned that Rusty had his hand up. Rusty, you want to chime in?
I didn't think I had my hand up.
It was me.
Oh, okay.
It's Gary.
Yeah, I didn't see Rusty's hand, but okay, we'll go with Gary next. Go ahead, Gary.
A question to everybody, and Mark maybe specifically. Mark, you had mentioned that you have some audiovisual equipment, like projectors and such. Does the club itself own any a good video camera for? Yeah, well, we ought to buy one.
Well,
these work pretty well.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Boo. No, something you can put on a stand, come on. They don't work very well. They're lousy.
Jeremy, what are we using?
For
For the Zoom
cameras?
meetings that you've been recording at Transtar.
My cell phone.
Yeah.
iPhone.
But for presentations, that's you need something a little better than that, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I use
But
my,
they're
pre-
cheap.
I
They're
use,
cheap, for God's sake.
I
Whoop,
use, yeah, but it's not a
Keyboard,
matter of
sorry.
cheap. It's a matter of who's going to take possession of it.
well,
So those are, we've avoided having capital assets. We have plenty of money, but I think we've avoided having capital assets mainly just because of the managing of the product.
what about you
So-
being a custodian of the audiovisual equipment? Your personal stuff as well as the clubs.
I don't want to take on I don't want to take on other stuff that I've already, I mean, I have my own equipment that I borrow from my company, which has been adequate so far, and I'm willing to continue to do that. But I think we can consider whether or not it makes sense to get one. We don't use it that often. They're pretty small. So as long as it's small and it fits in the box with the testing stuff, then
Well, like a GoPro or something,
well, that's just a camera. We have projectors, we've got a
Well, I
bunch of
understand,
audio
right.
speakers, et
those
cetera, presentation materials. So we can consider that. Maybe if there's a good eBay deal, we could probably pick something like that up,
Okay. So, yeah. So it's a good point. GoPro or something like that. And like Jeremy mentions, he's been, we've been using iPhones to post everything up on the web. Hold a second, Ken.
So-
Jeremy, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so I do have a GoPro we can use. I've used it before, but I think until we absolutely have to, I agree with not having any capital assets unless we really need to, because like if whoever is in possession of it, if they call in sick or whatever, for whatever reason, we won't have it for that meeting, or where are we going to store it? And,
There's
there's
more
a couple different.
complications. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's like if
Okay,
we had a closet somewhere that could store it, would be one thing, but if it goes home with somebody.
Okay, so
yeah,
just,
that's why
just as a,
Transtar was so convenient, Go ahead,
so
Steve.
just as a point of motion there, we're going to go with Ken and then with Gary, and then we're going to shut down this debate and move on to the next point. Otherwise, we're going to be filibustering. Ken, you're
I was
online.
going to say that as far as quality of photography and everything, the iPhones are being used for things like shooting movies and TV shows, so they're fine. If you're looking for something to hold the thing, you can always go to somewhere like Stack Social or something and get some kind of holder for the phone if that's what's bothering anybody.
Yeah, I
Another
agree. I use
capital
all
asset.
Yeah.
But they're your own, right? They're not for the club. So yeah, that's what I use for my POTA videos and all that. But I see the point. I mean, a fancier camera, of course, would be better. And the presentations, that's an outstanding point. Now we're going to be recording everything here. So we're going to be posting presentations in very good quality. But when we record in the room, we're going to have to evaluate how the iPhone, the current solution, is actually working. If it's not working, we need to be very frank and move on and do something else.
How much money are we talking about here, guys? It's very strange.
Well, the
sorry.
GoPro would have to go ahead and evaluate it because apparently the battery runs down fairly quickly. So what capacity, what battery pack, and all these things, how much are we talking about for that? I don't know.
Yeah, so far things have been adequate for what we've been doing. Our main limitation that we've had in terms of presenting is whether or not projectors work. And because if we meet in person, that has proven to be a limiting factor. If we don't bring a projector, normally at Transtar, the projectors and other video equipment are working well, and that's why we like to have the Transtar, the Transtar facility. And but again, it's not just a projector; it's speakers, it's power cords, it's all of the stuff that that you have to have for the club to do it. It's not so much the expense, but you know, it's management of those tools. So we've
Right.
considered these sort of things before and haven't really needed it because TransStar has been quite good at being able to provide us with that stuff, and the cell phone cameras and the recordings that we've had in the past have been adequate for what we've done, and everything, and the presentations are posted on the website. So you know,
Okay,
and then-
not to belabor this, but do we want to take a vote on actually looking at GoPro options besides this? I mean, do we want to bring this to the floor? I mean, we're discussing it, which is great.
I have a GoPro with a couple batteries. I'm willing to loan it to the club to see how it works out before we make any, I guess, financial obligation to it if we so choose. Yeah, I'll put that out there.
Which brings up the next question: where is it going to reside? Is it going to reside in the testing box? And that becomes that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
How much money are you talking about here for this camera and a stand?
$450 is what somebody in the chat just mentioned.
How much?
Sounds about $450. GoPro 10 is about $450.
That's
but
expensive.
So I don't think it's a question of the money. It's a question more of who's gonna. I mean, if this thing gets lost, that's $450 down the tubes, right? So where are we going to store it? In the testing box is one thing that was mentioned, and then who's got control of the testing box? The VEs that are mostly Mark. So let's go ahead and I would say let's put this to a vote. Easy enough. Do we need to go ahead and pursue the idea of a GoPro or a fancier camera, either getting bids and actually looking into this, or do we just go ahead and put it off to the side?
So the GoPros do have. I mean, I'll throw out there. The GoPros do have some pretty good. They're pretty good. I've taken them scuba diving, and the picture on them is pretty great. The audio is pretty good. If you don't have one of those waterproof cases on it, but it's a pretty good unit for the price, in my opinion.
Does anybody want to second this investigation?
Well, let's just look at it. I mean, there's plenty of options for cameras. I mean, we use a DJI at work. That's a $200 camera, and there's certainly plenty of cameras in the $50 and $100 range. It's just a matter of, how whoever's setting up the meetings and running it at the, running it is the one that has to be responsible for it. And then secondly, I think we can defer this. We can investigate it, but we're not meeting in person here probably for the next couple of months. So we have plenty of time in order to kind of work this out. Bob?
Okay, we had two comments. So Robert first, and then we go with John next.
Okay, I'll make a motion with table this for the time being until we get back together and then do some research on it before we decide to make a purchase of anything.
Second. All ayes in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So we're going to go ahead and just defer this until we start meeting together. John, you were on deck. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say that from my experience, it's not just the camera, but if you're doing this sort of thing, you need to consider microphones, because if the camera is 30 feet back from the person, it's going to sound terrible. So then you have to consider that. Then if you want to put up a PowerPoint or something, you need some way, and there's free options available where you can switch from a webcam, GoPro, whatever, to a PowerPoint thing without sound and still have the sound carry through the mic. But it starts, like Mark said, it gets complicated to a point pretty quickly. And then it requires somebody who knows how to set it up and what works and what doesn't work. And it can get where it's, if it doesn't look to some degree good, then you're putting out, you're putting yourself as if you're with clothes on that you would work on your car with, as opposed to at least looking presentable.
Okay, good
Just
point, John.
yeah.
No, good point. Okay, so we'll go ahead then, and we're just tabling this, and then we're going to go ahead and look, and folks are definitely free to go ahead and do their proposals and so on. But at this time, we'll continue with the status quo, just relying on Jeremy to bring in his personal equipment or iPhones, and we'll continue this way. Okay, any other business for the club?
November 5, Tango Charlie Bravo, Dom.
Go ahead, Don. Mike is yours.
I just got a suggestion. Hey guys, I gotta go, so I'm gonna make this quick. I have a suggestion for field day. I'm gonna go look at it this week, and I'll bring it back for summer field day. I'm gonna go down to Gallery Furniture, 45, which is half mile from here. You know, I did the heating center last year for Uri, and it seems like they do operate where you know nonprofits can come in and do some exposure. And I think for field day there, I'm looking more at the if we get a couple of contacts on the so-called contest side, even though they say field day is not a contest, I really don't care. But we can get in there with a go-to station on HF and VHF, UHF. I think it'd be a wonderful idea. So if y'all guys don't mind, I'm going to investigate that. And the comments back to Nick Cadro.
I think that would be perfect. As a matter of fact, just in case you guys didn't know, Dom actually interfaced already with Gallery Furniture either last year or the year before. And he was able to actually set up a station, met with Mattress Mac, and there was some good leads and good publicity for the club. So that's a great idea. I think that we should please proceed, Dom. And that's one of the points that we were mentioning before. Once Dom comes back to us, okay, there's an activity being potentially set up. Again, the encouragement to everybody, every one of us, to go ahead and participate. Subject
Okay,
to our
I gotta
time
get going,
constraints.
guys. I got another meeting to go to.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Okay, we're about to go ahead and put Ralph in the spot for his presentation, unless we have any other business that we need to discuss. The only other thing is the February meeting. We're just thinking that it's going to be in person. We're hoping that it's going to be in person, but we'll be monitoring the situation. So please stay tuned. Hopefully this crest of this wave is of the Omicron is done by then, and we can go ahead and resume our in-person meetings. But please stay tuned. With that, then we're going to go with a presentation entitled "Portable Vertical Antenna from Canopy Poles" by Ralph. Ralph, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'll need to share.
You should be able to share.
I will give you the permissions.
All participants can share according to what I'm seeing. There we are.
All right, do you have me shown there?
We're seeing your presentation, but yeah, you probably need to click on the
There we
slideshow.
go.
Yep, spot on.
All right. The title page is easy enough. That's to understand. But why? Why did I want to do this? Well, a couple of reasons. One is I've gotten tired of climbing trees, and I have been banned from climbing trees by several members of my family. But also I wanted something portable for field day, camping, parks on the air, where I don't have to get, throw a fishing line up in the tree to pull up a dipole. Emergency setup. What if I'm called out, or we are called out, and it's a field or a parking lot, there's no trees or structures? What if a big storm comes through and my big tree blows down? Well, I need something to get on the air, but I wanted something easy to set up. So I got to thinking about all the comments that I've seen in QST and other places. There's a lot of things about flexible and collapsible fiberglass poles that people were using. I knew that a 20 meter was going to be rather tall. I'm a little bit leery of anything too flexible. What about tent poles? And I found this online. I looked at several locations, several different vendors, and found this set. It comes 6 poles to a set, and I found a two set pack for $22. Well, I bought 2 of those because I wanted to make sure I had plenty of sections. Now these sections are about a 1/2 inch diameter. They're the old fashioned clip together with a button and a hole. There you see it's wedged, the button, the hole for the sections to nest together. Here it's put together. So I calculated up what the length should be, which is a 16 feet 5 inches for a 20 meter quarter wave vertical. And I started there. Now for a feed point, I said, okay, the bottom section of the set has a rubber cup glued on. It's not a friction fit, it's glued on. I found that out trying to get it off. So I drilled a little hole and then stripped some wire back, used a hose clamp, stainless steel hose clamp to keep it in place. Now this pole set is stainless steel. It's very thin wall, but it's stainless steel. For the top, it comes with a little steel peg sticking out the top, inserted into a plastic sleeve that is friction fit and glued into the top of the section. I removed that little steel peg. That peg is supposed to go through the eyelid of a tarp. These are they come 2 6-foot poles to go through the end of a canopy to hold it up in front of your tent or your truck or something like that. That's what these are for. But I got a piece of stainless steel rod about 2.5 feet long, used a stainless steel hose clamp to hold it in place. Now this is my test rig. This is not the, when you get to the next section, you're going to see it looks pretty ugly. It is, what'd you call it? Dead bug assembly kind of thing. It looks pretty ugly, but I wanted to test out my idea and my, this pole. So for the feed point or my connector, I've got an SO239 with 4 radials, just tie it on there, just bare wire tie it onto it for this point. I will solder those into place or assemble a ring that where I can have multiple radials of different lengths attached to it. The feed point itself, a small alligator clip to the center pin of the SO239 to the wire that is hose clamped to the base of my pole. It's ugly assembly at this point. This is a test rig. Please, no rocks. How tall is it? Well, you can see it is a little over, well, it's about twice as tall as the fascia on my garage. It's 15 feet, 8 inches tall. That's 12 sections plus 9 inches of stinger on top. Result, how does it play? Well, the calculation said 16 feet 7 inches. I came out with 15 feet 8 inches total. That includes 12 sections and a 9-inch stinger. Diameter is 1/2 inch. 4 radials of 16 feet 7 inches to match the quarter wave of a 20 meter. SWR is 1.2 or less across the entire band. Now on FT8, 60 watts, I was hitting Australia and Europe simultaneously. So a good low angle launch, just like it should be on a vertical. And of course, it played well all across the USA. I had looking at PSK Reporter, I was even in Australia, I was getting signal reports of only -12. That's fairly good on FT8. My next steps, I want to add a ring of some sort for 10-foot guy wire or at 10 feet for guy lines to help support it. Add radials for 10 meters to see if it will tune up as a halfway vertical. Try 6 meters. I'll adjust the number of sections as needed to tune in 10 meters and 6 meters. I'm going to take all the remaining sections and stack them up, see how close I can get for 40 meters. I expect it will be shorter than what the calculations say it should be, since on I'm a full section shorter than what it says on 20 meters. When I probably due to velocity factor, a good 10 meter highly conductive material. I'm sorry, stainless steel, highly conductive material. Questions that I've anticipated folks may have. What did I actually measure on SWR? You can see them there. 14 megahertz, 1.0, 14.2, 1.1, 1435, 1.15. So across the whole band, that is very good. On the so-called harmonic bands, well, not so good. It may be my radios need to be adjusted in order to improve the SWR, but as easy as it is to add and remove sections, I'm probably just going to develop or prove out the quarter wave vertical for each of these other bands. And 6 meters will probably be so short that I could put it up on a tabletop and work it that way, get a little bit of elevation. That's it. It's short and sweet. Like I said, it's ugly assembly, but it works very well. Just even with this, when I solder up some connections and have a more secure feed point, it will only improve.
Sounds good. Sounds great. Thank you, Ralph. That was very, very good.
I will
the
send
only
this
question,
final version to you, Stevens, or so it can go out on the webpage.
that sounds great. The only comment I'd have is if you're going to be making a 40 meter, remember that is a resonant with 21 megahertz. In other words, 40 meters and 15 meters are, if it resonates on one, it should resonate on the other one. So just something to keep in mind when you experiment with a 40 meter. Try
Well,
15
that's what
meter
I
right after
expected
that.
on the other bands, because 14.2 versus 28.4 should be resonant, but I got a 3.0 SWR. I need to look into that, see what's going on. 7.2 versus 14.2. I would have thought it better. I would have expected better than 5.5. I'm going to look at those, play with them, see what's going on.
What is the bit? What is it next to? Is it next to? You had it propped up against the building?
Oh, no. When I had it in the middle of my yard, which put it about 20 feet horizontal from a very large tree, that could be it. Thank you, Mark. Yeah.
Well, show again where you had it set up when you did these tests.
Okay. This is not where I did the test. I took this photo to show the height of it. But you see this large magnolia tree out here. That was about 20 feet. I moved it from this location next to the garage out to the middle of my yard. That still put it about 20 feet from this large magnolia tree. That could be close enough to throw off the tuning, I guess.
Well, one suggestion that I would make is that while you're showing where the resonant point, where it was at that frequency, but if you had the nano VNA curve, you could kind of see how sharp that resonant point was, because it may not be all that bad. It just might have a very sharp tuning point, and by making a small tweak, it might you might be able to get it a little bit better.
That's a fair point. What I did was I tuned across the entire band on each of these 3 bands, and these are the minimums.
Oh, okay.
But still, I should go. I should take my new Nano VNA and go maybe 6 megahertz bandwidth on it and see what it's doing on either side of the ham band. That may give me a clue. Good point.
Ralph,
Yeah.
I got a question.
Hang on. One second, guys. I think Gary's been chomping at the bit there. Gary, shoot.
Yeah, you're forgetting that the fact that your SWR is not 1-to-1 doesn't mean it's not resonant. A full wave vertical, which has a terrible radiation pattern, by the way, it's just god awful. It almost looks like a isotropic source. does not have the same feed point impedance as a half wave configuration. Well, center fed, but a quarter wave vertical has like the ideal ground plane is something like 35 or 40 ohms impedance. But if you go to a half wave vertical, which is what you're talking about here, instead of a quarter wave, the feed point impedance is totally different. And that's the reason your SWR is all boogered up on 10 meters.
Yeah, I was watching the forward power too. Yeah, I know that a horizontal dipole has a SWR of 75 ohms, more or less. So I know that feed point impedance changes, and I want to do a real analysis on this and see what my forward power looks like. That's what I really need to go with. Right? Is that right, Gary?
Sort of.
Yeah,
it's
sort
more
of. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, you can, you know, if you put an antenna tuner on this thing, you can get it down to 1-to-1. But the question is, where's the power going? It goes into the coax. Well,
Yeah. Is this measured at the feed point or at the end of the coax?
That is
Ralph?
measured at my radio.
Okay. So the
Okay,
other
guys,
the other
go ahead.
thought would be is to measure it right at the feed point and see if it's a little bit different, because you could have
Well, it
some
will be.
loss. Yeah, I mean, you could have some issue with the cable, depending on how long that cable is, and it still may be
Yeah.
good.
Should always be using at least 8x RG 8x or mini. The bigger version of RG 58. I don't know what you're using to feed it with.
8x.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's good.
Very good. I think we had a question over here from Hal.
Oh, Mark addressed it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this great project here?
Way to go, Ralph. Really cool.
It was fun
Yeah.
and easy.
Shoot, Gary.
Gary?
I've done a lot of work with vertical antennas, and everything you're seeing here is perfectly normal.
Yep.
That high SWR is 3-to-1, which I consider to be just at the limit of practicality. Would be I don't know what the impedance of a half wave vertical is, but I can guarantee it's not anywhere near 50 ohms. And it's, I don't know what it is. It also depends on the length of the radials and all that, but the radials don't make a heck of a lot of difference for the feed point impedance. But when the thing is resonant at some harmonic, you start getting into problems, even if you don't consider what the radiation pattern looks like. I've got a flower pot vertical on 20 meters, which is 30 feet above the ground at the bottom of the dipole. It's a vertical dipole, and the top of it's about 60 feet. And the height of the antenna, if you take an antenna like that does not have radials, and this one is fully counterpoised because it's a full dipole, the radiation pattern above ground also is something to consider. Anyway, it's a complicated mess.
That's a
I'll
good
shut up now.
No, that's
yeah.
a very good points. And also this idea that even a 1-to-1 SWR does not tell you the rest of the story. Very good points, Gary.
It could be a light bulb you're loading up.
I want to be looking at my antenna book after this meeting for sure.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right, and then
okay.
the other thing, just,
Go ahead.
you know, talking about the efficiency of the antenna also, I mean, with the fewer radials, a good portion of the signal is going down into the ground, so you have a lot of ground loss. And so that does, even with a 1-to-1, if you don't have a good you know, radial structure or good conductive ground, half the signal is going to be going into the ground.
Also, I will comment that I have all kinds of philosophical issues with FT8, but you certainly at 60 watts, you should be able to contact Mars on FT8.
Yeah, I have some philosophical issues with FT8 also, but I do enjoy challenging myself, and PSK Reporter gives me a good way to check the pattern of radiation from my antennas, because you can see who's receiving it and how well.
Hey, Ralph, can you tell everybody what's the website for that tool that you're using? PSK something?
PSK Reporter.
So it's just pskreporter.com or something like that?
I don't know whether it's .com or .org, but just do
Okay.
PSK Reporter, and it has a map, and it lets you pick what mode, because some people report their CW contacts into it. It's mainly CW or FT8 that goes into it, and it will show
Okay.
you by band, by mode, all the contacts going on, or you can put in your call sign and it will show you just who is hearing you.
Ralph, why don't you
Okay,
pull it
so-
up? Can you pull it up?
Yeah, let's see if I can do that.
And then I've showed that site before in a couple of my propagation presentations, so you
Yeah,
guys
I
should
know
have
this is a little bit
insight.
of a tangent, guys, but this is very good, because that's many questions we're having after we fiddle around with our antenna. Am I still getting out? Well, arbitrary. Well, they're hearing me or they're not hearing me. How good are you getting? Well, PSK Reporter and FTA give you a very good indication. You're still sharing your PowerPoint there, Ralph?
Yes. Oh, the PowerPoint I am?
Yeah, I'm seeing the PowerPoint. I'm not seeing
Let me
the
close the
website yet.
PowerPoint.
I think you have to reshare,
Okay.
highlighting the browser.
Yeah, thank you. It does ask me, what do I want to share?
Yeah.
There we go. Now this is
Yeah, we're all becoming Zoom experts. Now, see, that's pretty snazzy right there.
PSKreporter.info.
And /pskmap.html.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. 20 meters, signals received by anyone using FT8 the past 15 minutes.
So what that's telling us is how active FT8 on 20 meters is right now for any station in the world that reports to
this. And if I go up here and say, let's say the call sign, and then put in mine and hit go, it'll show nothing, but it shows you everybody who's on, and the ones that have little rainbow colors with them, those are monitoring stations that are always receiving and reporting.
Hey, Ralph, but you were there. Have you been on FT8 in the last 24 hours?
I don't know. I may have been yesterday. Let's take a look.
Try it.
Nope, guess not.
No. Okay.
It was the night before.
But this goes even back to 24 hours, so that's a good thing. And it gives you those options, so that's a good thing.
And you see, it goes worldwide, and you can zoom in and out. And so here I've got, you can see the entire globe that may, hopefully hear our signals. I have had trouble with my dipoles getting past the continental US, obstructions plus the radiation pattern of a dipole.
Ralph, can you click a station near Houston on that map and show so we can see what kind of data is there?
Sure. Let me zoom in a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, just select one and you can see what show all reception reports from one. Yeah, so you have him selected. So I select anyone there and then show all. Yeah, there you
everything's
go.
seen by this guy. It'll take a moment.
Oh, that's
He hadn't
cool.
been on long.
So that's where he's being heard.
That's what he's
telling
here.
me?
That's what that's what everybody's seeing him.
Even in Spain.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's great.
And,
Thank you.
And the color, that brown versus yellow, I believe it means which band. So the the brown may be 15 meters and the gold may be 20 meters or whatever.
Yeah, because up here you see it showed the all bands.
Yep. So definitely a very good tool. But I know we digress a little bit, but this I think was worth it. I mean, this is good stuff. I mean, if it's all had to you, great. If not, it may be something that can answer your question of, hey, am I getting out? And
Now, when I use
you know,
my 80-meter inverted V, the only signal reports I get are up here in the Northeast.
Yeah,
'Cause
just
it's-
one other item though. There's a couple of add-on programs for this. So you have something called Grid Tracker, and
Yeah.
then there's another couple of programs that you use associated with FT8 for for contesting and that sort of thing. So there's several programs in there that go along with it. This is of course aggregated data that is visible by everyone, but these other programs are good for just contesting and that and award tracking, that sort of stuff.
good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah.
Okay,
So
I think I'm ready to stop share on my end. Is everybody good
Yeah.
with that?
yeah. Well, definitely. Thank you very much, Ralph. That was very, very useful. And I guess, again, it wasn't so much a digression. It was actually highlighting a very important tool that we all might benefit from. Any questions or comments for Ralph before we proceed to the next presentation? Yep, agreed. Thumbs up for sure. Great presentation. Thank you very much, Ralph. Okay, the next one is going to be a presentation entitled Home Brewing Ham Radio Gear by Barry, KG5IRR. And this is a good one. Barry, are you ready?
Yeah, I can get there pretty quick. So share screen.
Mhm. When you click share screen, you have to select the screen that you want to share,
Yes.
and then click share. Yep,
Right.
something's coming up. Yep, we're seeing your PowerPoint or something.
Right. Let me see here.
It may be a PDF, so in which case you might just have to make it like fill up the entire screen, or that's
Well,
probably, we don't have a presentation mode.
Let me do this. Stop the share for a second. So some of you may have heard that over the holidays I was working on a VFO, and that's kind of my latest home brew project. And this is the result of it. It's basically a digital synthesizer controlled by Arduino. And it's more of a proof of concept thing and kind of a starter. If I'm going to build a receiver or transceiver, then this is going to be the heart of it. And it was just sort of a learning thing for me to get familiar with the Arduino code and do a proof of concept. But I guess what you see here is the 16 by 2 LCD display and the encoder, rotary encoder down here for, basically your control point for the Arduino. On the back are two modules. One is the DDS that generates a sine wave, and the other is the Arduino module. Nano is what's on there. But so basically 4 major components, very little wiring to get it all hooked up. Right now it's configured to run off the USB port, which you also use to download and modify your code for Arduino. But when we meet face to face, I can demonstrate this. And then I also have, for our face to face, a pocket oscilloscope that I can show the sine waves on. But this rig here will tune from 1 megahertz to 30 megahertz. And you also have the ability to put in an offset to, appropriately tune the VFO for whatever your IF is for your radio. So like I say, it's sort of the heart of a digitally tuned radio, if you want to take it that far. But so along those lines, I have a presentation which is kind of piecemeal. I had an audio file and the slide deck, and I'm going to be trying to walk through the slide deck to keep up with the audio. The audio started out about 34 minutes long, and through some trimming and a little bit of accelerated playback speed, it's about 26 minutes now. But I'm going to go ahead and launch that. That is a presentation from Dr. Jack Purdom at the 4 Days in May event that took place in 2018. And I think you'll all find it very interesting. Any questions so far?
Just a quick question. That Arduino project, how long did it take you to put it together or to program it or whatever you did?
Well, I leveraged some code that I found on the internet as a starting point. I probably have about 15 hours in it. But the thing that threw me the most was getting the correct library for the rotary encoder that I found. And the problem is there's lots of different libraries out there, and there's lots of different implementations for rotary encoders, and some of them may or may not be compatible with the version of Arduino that the IDE for the Arduino that I was using. So you find a lot of compatibility issues, and that's what you're going to struggle with the most. Ultimately, I was able to get one of the encoders working very well. It doesn't give me any problems. Let's see, what else can I say about that? Yeah, I did a deep dive on the code to fully understand what it was doing. And essentially what the rotary encoder is doing is implementing a state machine inside the code. But you can deep dive as much as you want on these things, or just leverage code that's written by others and just tweak it here or there for your own purposes. And it's really not that hard to take a project forward and do your own personal thing with it.
Well,
so maybe at
cool.
some point I'll put together a presentation on setting up Arduino and actually walking you through my project, if there's interest there. But
well, you read my mind, because
yeah.
That's what I was going to press you for sure.
Yeah, but there's some basics getting started with Arduino, but it's once you kind of get over the initial hurdles, it really goes pretty smooth and not at all intimidating. I know that Rusty's done some work with Arduino, and I think he'd probably share my opinion there. But anyway, let's kick off the presentation.
Hey, one second. I think Gary, you got a comment?
Yeah, real quick, Barry. Is that programming in C?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The Arduino uses this terminology called Sketch, which is really just a C program. They're trying to make it less intimidating for the common man, let's say, but it's all C code, and it's fair. There's really not very complex structures, if you will, inside typical Arduino implementations. And so you don't need to know a whole lot of statements to really become proficient at implementing projects.
Good. All right, Barry. So again, Barry's presentation is entitled Home Brewing Ham Radio Gear. Please.
Okay, let's see if I can get this back online. Okay, you
Okay, we're seeing your PDF.
see the PDF. I'm gonna start the audio.
All right, what do we mean by home brewing? Essentially, it means building your own equipment, but there's different levels of this. And one of them is like what Mike does. You design and build stuff, build it yourself. I wanted to be a double E engineer the worst way. And like I said, I got my license young. I knew I loved electronics and I was going to go to college and be a double E. And my high school counselor told me I wasn't smart enough. Seriously. And when I went to a little school up in Northern Ohio, and you had to decide fairly early on whether you're going to fix farm equipment or go to college. And I was encouraged to fix farm equipment. And so I didn't go into it, and I kind of regret it even to this day. I really admire people like Mike and others who can build stuff. There are guys who really, you send them out for a month in the forest and they come back with a kilowatt transceiver that runs on creek wire. I don't know how they do it, but they can do it. Pete Giuliano is one of those guys. Maybe you've heard of him. This is his version of home brewing. And he has each one of those little pads or little islands that you see there is some kind of a circuit. It might be an audio amp, it might be the power supply, it might be an oscillator, whatever. But that's the way he builds, and he has the knowledge to do that. I don't have that knowledge, unfortunately. For those people who know what they can do, then it just boils down to what do I want to build. Once you made that decision, for someone like me, you have to go out and decide what's feasible given my talents and my resources. Create the design, block diagrams, and so forth. Acquire the parts, breadboard the design, help with the problems. Forms are a great resource for that. Anyone who's got a microVidX knows how valuable those forms can be. Printed circuit board, like Mike said, I got to find that $2 one. I found the $5 one. And then share with open source. Almost everything I've done, at least up until now, is open source. I can't design and build, but you can buy a kit and put it together. And some people call that home brewing. I don't think it really is. But usually you get a bag of parts and some bad instructions. This is the 49er kit that you can buy on eBay for like $10. And it's a 3-watt, 40-meter transceiver. That's a simple thing. Build a kit, read the instructions, build a kit, and you end up with what it is. Then the third category is what I call a tweener. And that's somebody else's design, but you somehow enhance it. And maybe you saw this was in QST. That's the same 49er, but I added a VFO to it and a 2-line LCD display. And the reason for doing that was because at a field day that we had for the club I belong to, we had a go-to station where somebody could come in and get on the air, and he was about 13 years old, and he was so excited. He talked to somebody in California, and he was just beside himself. And he was telling his mother about it when I walked up. And her response was, yeah, that sounds like a wonderful hobby, but where are you going to get the thousands of dollars it costs for the radio? And we have that perception. A lot of people think that we have to have several $1,000s tied up in equipment to be able to contact someone else. So that's why this was built. The next year, I took it to field day and I said, build this for under $50, this station. Another variation. This is the MicroVidX display. How many have heard of the MicroVidX? Okay, good. Al and I have been working on a tweener variation on that. And that's our display, our touchscreen display. 5 or 7 inch. We've got, as you can see, reading on the top, we've got a ATC built in. We've got a test meter. We've got 8 filters in it. We've speech compressor, 2 BFOs. Oh, and see those down in the lower right, you see S1, 2, 3. Those are for push buttons on the top of the rig. So if you press S1, the message you see at the bottom of the screen is what gets sent out in Morse code. And you get 50 of those. And you can set those at runtime. You don't have to recompile just to change them. That's what those up and down arrows are for over on the side. So this is really taking someone else's work and just expanding on it, and maybe doing a little bit more. Here's another addition. After I did the 49er, a lot of people were having problems with local AM stations. And so I built a little circuit board that was just a broadcast interference filter. That one cost 87 cents. And it just knocked the slats out of the BCI. Chuck Adams, that uses his Muppet construction. More on that in a little bit. Okay, why Home Brew? Well, at first you didn't have a choice. When I got my license, you either had enough money to buy a Collins S line, or you're pretty much limited to building your own. So my first transmitter was a 15-watt 2-tube affair with a Helicrafters S40 for the receiver. And that was it. So you just didn't have. Today, you don't have that same restriction because there's just all kinds of opportunities and alternatives. I do it to learn, experiment, and enjoy. I get more enjoyment out of building stuff than I probably do from operating. Expand your equipment base. You can do that without too much cost. Some people do it to save money. Didn't work for this guy.
Jesus Christ.
I'm not sure. That might be Mike. What tools do you need? Something to melt solder. Duh. Too hot for control. These, there's an outfit right up in Springfield that sells hi-fi equipment. Parts Express. They had this thing on sale recently for $15. That's the one that I've been using forever. But I've gotten into SMD stuff, so I upgraded, and I now have an air reflow type machine. I've only used it once so far, but I know I'm going to be using it a lot more. So if you're just getting started, obviously go low end, decide later what you really need. Solder, I prefer 62-36-2. That last 2 is the silver. And Radio Shack has this in a .022 diameter. And I really like it. The only thing is it's really getting tough to find. I bought 7 rolls from a guy who had some. Lots of times you'll see people have sales on solder that's .33 and above. I wouldn't even consider using that. Sometimes you have to remove solder. You can use a solder sucker or never make a mistake. Digital multimeter. I like this ADAC. There's choices. Harbor Freight gives them away about every other month. This is probably the best $20 I've ever spent. That is a component tester, but it will test not only resistors and capacitors, it will test inductors, transistors, FETs, almost any discrete component you can think of. I don't know about you, but when I build things, if there's through hole and they have like a capacitor has the number on it, okay, that's the same guy that wrote the Lord's Prayer on a grain of rice. Okay. Here, the advantage of these testers is you put it in, you see immediately whether it's good and if it's the correct value. I've had, not a lot, but I've had some parts that were mislabeled, and this catches it. So to me, I think this is just an invaluable thing to have if you're doing any kind of kit building. Yes. It's on eBay. They've jumped the price up. It's now $25, but it's still a bargain. They're really, and there's a cord that comes out of it that plugs into a USB port and recharges the battery. So it's got a rechargeable cell in it too. Anyway, worth having. I use this more often than I should. Magnifying glass, and this one has LEDs built into it. I find it very useful. Not so much for the work I'm doing on my desk, but when I drop something. Okay, it goes underneath my desk. Printed circuit board holder, I used to laugh at this and say, come on. I don't laugh anymore. I find it very, very useful. Up until last year at Hamvention, I never had a pair of snips like this. I always use toenail clippers. These are great. These are a lot better than toenail clippers. Worth getting. What can I do to increase the odds of success? What directions? Come on. Organize the parts before you start. I put this picture in QST and I got about 5 or 6 nasty grams from people saying, "No, you put something in styrofoam." Yeah, I do when it's a non-static sensitive component. Plus, I do all my building in the basement. I could rub 2 cats together and not get a spark, so I'm not worried about it. Source for parts. Local, I always try to support my local suppliers if I can. I live in Cincinnati. We have an outfit called Devco, the advertising QSD. I always check there first, just to support them. DigiKey, Mauser, all the ones that you're familiar with, do a good job. And I think they really do try to help us. The shipping is a problem sometimes, but I found that it's useful to talk to other people in your club and combine orders, save on the shipping. There's an outfit in Atlanta, Georgia that advertises on eBay, and it's friendly. And they have resistor assortments and capacitor assortments. And I've always gotten good stuff from them. It's inexpensive, but the really nice thing is they label everything. It's not just a big bag of stuff that arrives. That to me is worth something. TEDA Electronics, I think, is a good source. I can't vouch for everything that they sell because I've had some people tell me that some of their ICs are fake, but I've not experienced that. The thing that I like about them is they have a distribution warehouse in Livingston, Colorado. So quite often, if you order, you'll get your order within three days or so. eBay, no big surprise there. Hamfest, obvious. Craigslist, I use Craigslist carefully. And I have gotten some good purchases. Recently just bought a buddy pole for about half of what its retail price is. And it looks like it's never been out of the bag. He said he used it once, but I'm not even sure of that. Wire, if you take some scrap Ethernet cable and pull off the insulation, you've got 8 wires, high quality wire inside, but it's all crinkled up. Take a 2x4 and roll it on the desk, and you'll take the kinks out of it, and you'll end up with some great hookup wire for next to nothing. Project cases. Big box stores have some. Harbor Freight has Apache cases that are very much like Pelican cases, and they're at a fraction of the cost, and they go on sale quite often. Plus, you get 20% off anyway. So that's a good, a great source for containers. The Container Store, like that 49er I showed you, was in a clear Lexian case. I kind of like that, and I did that so that if that lady came back with her son, they could see how simple it was. Organized. Mike mentioned this. Those resistors are the ones that come from Georgia, and I put them in those $4 organizing boxes. I have those at home. It makes it easy to get at things. Don't be afraid to try a strange enclosure. I had an article in QST in November with an antenna analyzer, and I used a clear waterproof case. Why not? Those were a lot cheaper than an aluminum case and a lot easier to work with. Some tips and techniques. Sometimes the part sequence matters, and it's because you want to look at the schematic and see if this heat sink is going to block you from easily mounting something else. And most manuals, like Hans's manual, is just a thing of art, really. And he's given consideration to that. But usually you can tell by looking at the schematic and the printed circuit board what sequence makes sense. Look for part similarities. Resistors and axial inductors look alike, but they don't behave the same. Study the schematic and the block diagrams and do that before you start construction, and print them out. Have a large, clean, well-lit work surface. Mike doesn't know this, but I snuck in and took a picture of his desk. By the way, right here, there's a 12K resistor. You should be able to leave and return to your work without it being disturbed. In other words, you don't want to do it on the dining room table. Try to find a place where you can leave it, because you're not going to do anything serious in one sitting. Try to work in a static-free environment. Like I said, my basement, not an issue. If you do have a static environment, make sure you ground yourself before you handle any ICs or static-sensitive devices. I place a large white towel on the work surface. Why? Find the parts. They don't bounce. And when you're done, you ever notice how you get little blobs, invisible blobs of solder or little balls of solder? You just take it and you go outside and take it out and you're done. Wear safety glasses. And I do mean that seriously. When I was in my toenail clipper days, I wear eyeglasses, fortunately, but sometimes it wouldn't get quite down flush to the board. And one time I was getting after a little tiny nubby, and I went like that, and it went bang right in the center of those glasses. If I hadn't had them on, I'd probably still have that piece of lead in there. Place the solder station with the dominant hand side as the location of the soldering iron, that burning flesh thing. Place the parts on the opposite side. And you do that so you're not reaching across the soldering iron. Put the printed manual at the top of the towel. Along with that printed towel, printed manual at the top of the towel, put a copy of the schematic at the top as well. Have a comfortable chair or seat that you can work at least 2 hours without feeling uncomfortable. This is important, easy access to multiple AC outlets, because sometimes you're going to be using a voltmeter or something that requires power just over and above what your soldering iron demands. Construction methods. Birth board. Our builders group recently built a dummy load, and it's an oil filled, but it's filled with castor oil, so you actually could drink it if you wanted to. But you'd be busy for a while. But this is from that project where we built the dummy load, and it's an article that will be coming out in QST sometime this year. I'm not sure. They haven't gotten back to me about when. But it has a small OLED display, and it reads out the power, and it can take up to 150 watts for a long time. How long did we run that, Al?
Actually, 250 for 5 minutes.
Okay, 250 watts for 5 minutes. And it will also measure fractions of watts, so it's good for QRP work too, even though it's overkill. Muppet. This is a way of etching boards that Chuck Adams came up with, and I really, really like it. At the top is that BCI filter that I showed you earlier. And the resistors that you see, that's a 20-watt dummy load. And then over on the other thing is an isolation thing for a keyer. And it's really easy to do. Chuck has a great YouTube series. Just look up Muppet on YouTube and you'll see the series that he has. Dead bug style, or sometimes called ugly style. And what you do there is you float the components off a ground plane. And you'll notice a lot of components are grounded, and then you have other components tying into the other end of those. And it works, but it is ugly. The ICs are mounted upside down, so the legs are standing up, and that's how I got the name Dead Bug Style. Manhattan Style. Is Rex here? He sells he owns QRP Me, and they make those little pads that you see there. You glue them in place, and they are for like soldering components too. Then you can solder to the ground plane. So it's a variation of Dead Bug Style, but a lot better looking. This is work done by Dave Richards, AA70E. And it is, if you go to his webpage and look at some of the stuff he's done, it's actually an art form. It's beautiful work. Home Brew commercial PCBs. Again, that's what Mike was talking about, where it's just so easy to do it. We also use DipTrace, and it's a free software for up to 300 components, which is usually more than enough. Make the Gerber files, send it off to the printed circuit board house, and usually very inexpensive. Raises questions. Through hole or surface mounted devices. Through hole costs more. By that I mean it costs more to manufacture the board, not much, but a little. And the parts are generally more. Discrete resistors and capacitors cost more than the surface mounted ones. But people find it less frightening. How many people have done SMD? Oh, okay, never mind. No, I don't want to know. Okay, less costly, SMD, less costly, and like Mike was saying, you know, you can get 1,000 capacitors in a roll like that long, a strip of paper. However, don't sneeze. Here's a chart, and he's actually, Hans this morning mentioned 1206 size, and that's the size that I like. 805s are something that are also doable, but a little harder as you get older. And those top ones you can barely even see. I like to say you can have a bunch of those, what are they, 4 somethings on a desk, sneeze, and come back with a transceiver when the cloud settles. This is a thing that I'm going to be doing next month at our club. This is a trial SMD soldering thing. And you get all different sizes of SMDs. You get a couple of ICs, some LEDs, and that's about it. And you mount them on this board. And if you look on the left side, you can see that you have different sizes of components as you work across the board. Then that circle are LEDs that you mount. And if you do it right and apply voltage at the bottom, when you're done, it has an LED thing that spins around. I mean, the real thing that I hope to do is to get some of my club members to have enough courage to try and do some SMD soldering. This is how I store my SMDs. That's a 3-foot piece of board with Velcro on it. And then I cut little 1/4-inch square pieces and put it on what they call a cosmetic sample case and put the SMD parts in that and then just stick it on the wall. Then when I need something, I just go up and pull off what I need. And you can sneeze around that. Certain things you should do at the outset. Continuity check on a bare circuit board. If you can, apply like a 9-volt battery to the plus and do the same for the negative, and then go walking around the board and see if there's any dead shorts that you can find. It's a good idea to do that before you even get started. Use a highlighter pen to mark off the components. Remember I told you to take a copy of the schematic and put it above the towel? That's why. You take a yellow highlighter and each time you mark off a component, it will tell you that you've mounted that. If you have an instruction manual like Hans has, you probably don't need to do that. Build the power supply section first and then do the continuity check again. And you should be able to see voltages on certain trip points on transistors and ICs and stuff like that, as well as ground points. The next section depends on the project. Again, Chuck Adams has a YouTube video on building DIS's 1-watt transceiver, and it's 11 YouTube videos, and he walks through that and shows you how to build the power supply section, then build the audio section and test it, and he shows you how to test it, and it's a very, very instructive video that will give you a reason for building things the way that you do. And his whole thing he's trying to get across there is build in testable sections. Some rules, some hints for success. What I call the 3S2 rule. You put the iron on a joint for 3 seconds, apply the solder, and you hold it for another second or two before you remove the iron. Why is that? Because if you do that, it will wick through to the other side of the board. And you can tell then if you flip the board over and you see solder on that side, it's probably going to be a good connection. The Strum Rule. I tend to solder maybe a half a dozen components at a time. And when I'm done, I take my thumbnail and I tweak the lead. And if it makes a musical note, an almost musical note, I'm almost guaranteed it's a good connection. If it goes thud, it's probably cold solder. So after you do that test, then you can take your toenail clippers and clip it off. The forest rule. Try not to solder more than a half a dozen components at a time, because any more than that, you're probably going to start bumping into things with the iron. And there should be no rush to do that. So just make it easier on yourself. The cool rule. Some components like transistors, especially some diodes like signal diodes, they get a little cranky when you give them too much heat. So what I do is I will mount all of those diodes and I will go around to all the cathode connections and solder them. Then I will go back and do the anodes. And that way it gives it time to cool in between. I've never had one fail, but I probably never would have anyway, but at least it works. The clean rule. Clean the soldering tip often. Al discovered that, was it non-lead solder that caused the problem?
Yeah, lead-free.
Lead-free solder will eat a soldering tip in a week.
2 days.
2 days. Yeah, so stay away from lead free. I don't care what they say about your chance of getting lead poisoning, especially as old as we are, is pretty small. The deep clip rule. This is why you have the towel. One of the reasons for having the towel, because you take it away, you throw off everything, and you're pretty sure that you've got all those little clippings off. I've heard horror stories about people who get done soldering and they don't do that. They apply power and there's just a little hunk of wire that they missed on the bottom side and it shorts out something. And that rarely does anything good for the kit. What kind of enclosure? Well, the key there is what's the purpose of the project? If you're building it to go do a SOTO activation, you don't want something that's big and heavy. Do you need RF protection? Some equipment doesn't. Lightweight, again, if you're taking it portable, size, battery pack, you have to have room for a battery pack, and cost is also another one. Conclusion, why do I build? The reason I build stuff is because I'm trying to learn what I should have been in the first place. Learn something about the hardware. I learned an awful lot from Al. I learned from reading. I learned from QQ magazine, everywhere. Planning, I actually enjoy planning a project. I think that's actually, for me, part of the enjoyment. When I get done, I have a sense of accomplishment, and I even get that, sadly, when something doesn't work. And then when you get it repaired and it does work, there's a feeling that it's hard to describe, but there's a sense of accomplishment that you built something and you're talking to somebody halfway around the world on it. It's just, to me, it's a real high. Okay, any questions? Yeah. None. And the reason is because I built my own office in the basement, and when I flip the light out, everything in the office goes off. Yeah, I could do that, but I don't have to worry about that, fortunately.
Well, guys, that was it.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. They were very good tips on how to do these projects. No? That's it's spot on, a lot of them.
Yeah,
I mean, everything he said makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, as I told you, I've been doing this stuff all my life, and even I walk away with some really good tips.
You bet. You bet. Guys, we're going to go ahead and now do the next one. This one is going to be fairly painless, so it's going to be a video showing you two different transceivers that you might have actually been actually considering buying. And then hang on a second, let me go ahead and bring it up and just see what they sound like. And you know, that's the whole point. So if you just wondered, for example, what the Shigu G90 that people keep talking about, how does it sound compared to an IC7300? Well, I'm glad you asked, because this is it right here. I'm going to go ahead and share, and that one. And let's see if please let me know if you can see the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. We go ahead and maximize it, and I'll skip through this advertisement. It's silent right now, but it'll kick up in a second as soon as you see the radios.
It's been more than a year because I haven't heard you coming in here, and I wondered, you know, maybe you had COVID or something and didn't make it. But you sounded very nice, and it's a pleasure to have you back.
That's a Daiwa switch.
Can you do me a favor? Can you give me a report in comparison with another friend of mine? He just put up a new antenna. You got about 2 minutes? What I'm going to do is I'm going to count to 10, and he's going to count to 10, and I'm going to count to 10 again. Whether it's coming in or going out. So his name is Walter. His code is KE4NTG. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Get Walter. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Marcy, what do you see? Oh, maybe you know my voice better. He sounds okay to me. No, we need this. This is not a matter of, not insulting somebody. We need a very, very accurate report of dB differences. Because if this antenna is as good as it seems, I'm probably going to go out and buy it. I'm not, and if it's about the same, because it's like lopsided a little bit. I don't even know if it's directional or not. But we really need to give us more like a dB, not like a tad. A tad doesn't help us. Give me a number.
So are these the
Different
stock
station.
speakers? Are these on the same
Yeah.
speaker, or they're the
Yeah.
speaker? Is that a
So
yes?
this is the speaker in the G90, and that's the speaker in the 7300. And you're
Okay.
standing about 1.5 feet away from the G90, moving over, standing about 1.5 feet, or sitting about 1.5 feet from the IC 7300. So the idea here is it shows you exactly how it would sound in your shack.
Caribbean in here. We did have Colonel Pete, but Mike there, W4RN, and Tom, KHCX, had no copy on him. But I did work him. I got 5.6, and I could hear him 5.5 on the beverage. But it was really bad condition. Up and down. So we got the Caribbean, Tim. So you can aim one of the guns down there. We got 8 Papa 4 Sugar Bravo, if you want to write this down. 8 Papa 5 Alpha Alpha, 9 Zulu 4 Yankee, and 8 Papa 4 Victor Delta. So I'm going to turn it to you, and we have Whiskey 4 Radio November, Mike. Of DC in Northern Virginia, where he has a lot of snow and ice on the antenna there. And of course, Tom. And then Mike, you probably heard up there, Woburn there just came in. So it's strange conditions, Tim, very strange. K8 Lima Radio, W83 FET. I hope you had a great presentation. Okay, Jim. W83 FET from K3 London Radio. Yeah, we had... for the meeting on Zoom. It was a hybrid, Jim, so it worked out really well, and
This is changing the AGC.
Barbados out there, 3 out of the 4 call signs. Let's start with 8 Papa 4 Sierra Bravo, Kilo 3 Radio.
AGC fast.
8 Papa 5 Alpha Alpha.
We got some QSB there. Just about to wrap up.
Okay, Philip. Very nice signal, great audio. Thank you so much. And 8 Papa 4 Victor Delta, C3 London Radio.
Why doesn't every home in the US have
So-
solar panels?
So that was it. Hopefully it was useful to you. I mean, this is the one thing that video was supposed to do, just to go ahead and compare one and the other. Some of the comments that I got on that video was I didn't even know the G90 had an SDR display, a waterfall display. It's got a little one, but just in case that's useful.
Steve,
No.
Steve, is the volume knob multi-turn
Yes,
with
it is.
G90?
Yes, I don't know if you noticed, but the G90 at the beginning, I was having it sort of like a single turn, and it was okay, but I wanted to highlight towards the end that you can actually go with a multi-turn and actually go even louder. And then I had to drop the volume down to just about 0, and disengage the AGC, which was set at fast, so that then I could immediately get that extremely strong sound from the G90, and then I barely turned it up, and actually had to step back because it was so loud. It's very harsh tone when you do the AGC off. Okay, the last one is going to be a 2-minute presentation on the current project that maybe some of the club members here are also have heard about. Maybe they haven't. But
Gary,
it's
you need to speak up. What you got?
Oh, I was looking for permission
I'm
to
sorry.
speak up. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you there, Gary. Sorry. Oh, shoot.
I just checked real quick on the internet to see what the price difference was, and the G90 is like $400 plus, and the 7300 is plus or minus $1,000.
Exactly, and I think that was the real goal of that video. Is when I was looking around for a rig a couple of years, 3 years ago, I was also looking at there was actually one comparison of audio. In other words, in the shack with an antenna switch, how does one rig sound? How does the other rig sound? So that I figured, I looked around here and I just happened to have the G90 that I take on POTA activations on the shack, and also the 7300. That's the base station radio. And I figured out, let me just do again an iPhone recording, and some folks have already commented it's useful. You know, it's exactly how it would sound. And at the beginning, I do go ahead and put a disclaimer saying, hey, this is not a scientific review. The radios are totally different. You can argue that you can filter much more on the 7300. You have more control of filtering than you do in this. You know, you can beat that dead horse to death, but this is what it would sound like. So just for whatever it's worth.
Well, the real, the other comparison is with the 705, as a QRP rig, and that's, $1,100. So, if you're looking just power comparison, the Xegu's a lot. I mean, for the money, that's a very good radio compared with the 705, and then especially with all the other stuff that that ICOM has at the accessories, Xegu's a very good alternative.
Right. I bought it at Ham Radio. What was it? HRO, Ham Radio Outlet up in Plano. I did a road trip just up there, a day trip, a nice trip to get away. And HRO in Plano, it's the closest one we have. And it was, just an impulse buy. And it was $448 or something like that. Walk away. Okay, the last presentation should be a 2-minute presentation, so just bear with me if you would, please. And this one is about what, again, may be old hat to you, but hopefully you can see the slide. It's the project that I'm working on right now. It's learning CW with the Long Island CW Club. A quick introduction. The Long Island CW Club, what is it? It's a very good group of hams helping other hams to learn CW. It's right now got 2,210 members. They're spread across the 50 states plus 32 countries, which is interesting. And they give 75 classes. And these classes are rotating. At any one point, you can log in and they'll have a class. How do we meet? Exactly like how we're meeting right now with you guys, Zoom meetings. And there is a Wednesday night class that they meet on the radio. They'll actually go into the CW part of the spectrum. And I think it was 7005 or something like that, 0.10. And at that point, there was a station from a Dutch fellow in Bordeaux, France. And there was Howard, the head of the Long Island CW Club, that shepherds you along. Okay, I made a contact. Okay, W2WF. I'm gonna, as soon as he give you the sign, you put in your call sign. And then, okay, go. So then you do, and then it says, okay, he got you. Go ahead and give him a signal report. So he walks you through it. So there's some radio activity, but it's mostly Zoom meetings, CW practice using G4 phone as far as what I'm using right now. How much does it cost? It's $30 for 1 year to join the Long Island CW Club, $50 for 2, $70 for 3, or what I ended up getting is for $90 the lifetime. And at that point, you can join any of the classes, and for you don't have to worry about when to renew. So it's the new project, and it's something that I'm enjoying. This is exactly what the introduction to QSO protocol screen looks like on my machine. This was actually this past Thursday night at 10 p.m. And W6JIM is Jim from Walnut Creek, California, and he was the host of this meeting. And essentially, what we're doing is we're just calling CQ, or he asks us to translate some slow code or something like this. There's folks from all over the place. Sujopo at the lower left-hand corner is in Thailand. He's another instructor. And there's folks from all over the country. The next slide is, this one is actually on Friday morning at 7 in the morning. And then again, this is the Long Island CW Club Zoom channel, one of the Zoom channels. They've got two, and they alternate Zoom A to Zoom B, depending on which class you're accessing. This one is called Breakfast with a Cup of Yorkshire Tea, and it happens at 7 in the morning, which is convenient for the Brits. The folks in the UK go ahead and log in. That's Rachel from the UK. That's Michael with a tie from England as well. And so then they'll go ahead and just send out some CW. It'll be a little bit fast for me, at least, maybe 10, 15 words a minute at this point. That's pushing my limit. But you copy what you can. And again, this is very interactive and very, very useful. And so if this is your cup of tea, I'm in. So what's their website? All your information can be attained at this site. It's the Long Island CW Club. That's their website there. I can't see the last. I think it's .org. I think it is. I'm not sure. But again, so this gets you back into, or maybe gets you for the first time into CW. These slides come from the Long Island CW Club, whose mission is really to go ahead and promote CW. There's all kinds of historical links. I didn't know, for example, that in World War II, the Marine Radio Training CW was copied by typewriter. So not only did the ladies have to go ahead, and this is a training session here, the ladies have to go ahead and decode in their mind, they immediately had to decode back onto a typewriter. So that was interesting. A class over there on the left-hand side, an actual Lancaster bomber. Go ahead, shoot.
On that typewriter, it was called the mill, and it was all caps, and they were trained to hear it and push the key. That was the way they learned CW for that.
I tell you what, just getting my mind to engage with the actual, it's like close to the metal programming that maybe Gary was mentioning at the beginning, firmware programming. You're not going through layers of software or programs to decode, to look up the translation sheet, to go ahead and engage your hand, to write the pencil, to write the code, the letter. You're actually going directly. Sound, imagine, or you visualize the letter. So you're going directly at the firmware level. But yeah, imagine these ladies there having to go immediately from the mind directly to the typewriter, or the M1, as you say. Lancaster Bomber Radio Room. And on the left-hand side, upper left, is interesting that this is actually at a hotel in France, and it was set up for CW with a strategic map on the wall, 1949 NATO, and they're copying code. So I'm bitten by CW. That's the project for this year. That's the goal, to do as much as I can. So I thought I'd share that with you guys. Again, Long Island CW Club. I just joined in Wednesday, and I was on the air talking to Bordeaux, France, with a CW QSO with a lot of assistance from Howard that same night. So if this is your cup of tea, highly encourage it from what I can tell. It's quite useful. And let me see if I can.
That's really nice. I enjoyed that.
How do I get out of this?
And if you listen to the AARL program on the air, I think it's the current issue they've got out on the podcast is on CW and mentions the Long Island Club as one of them that they talk about on that program.
Very good point. I think it's the ARRL pushing CW like on the air, like Donald says. There's a full issue on this. And you'll also hear on KI6NAZ's YouTube live stream, That's Josh, and he did the last episode on the Long Island CW Club, which got me motivated to look into it, and I signed up. And tonight's live stream in YouTube from KI6NAZ is going to be about a variety of inexpensive CW rigs that you can take on soda or POTA activations. And these things, I mean, I was amazed. They're about the size of a cigarette pack. You can put up on your sleeve. I mean, they're very, very small. They're not big power, 5 watts, but they reach across the world. It's pretty impressive. And again, it's your mind doing the decoding. Nothing against FT8. I love FT8, but this is just less hardware. Some people don't like FT8, but yeah.
Steve, I have a quickie.
Go.
Can I do a little quick show and tell?
Yeah. At this point, we break out into the session if folks need to leave, obviously. But yeah, this is exchanging information and so on. So shoot.
I got something to show you guys. This
What you
is
got there?
well, it's mostly battery. There's a 9-volt battery underneath. The circuit board's on top.
Hold it steady right there so we can focus. Okay.
Okay.
It looks like a pot.
You got a potentiometer, some a little Zener diode, and a op amp, and some other goodies.
Yes.
This is a 5-volt voltage standard. It's accurate to 1 part in 10,000.
Okay.
It's a 5-volt standard with a plus or minus half, say 5 millivolts or half a millivolt plus or minus. So it's accurate to 1 millivolt range, 5 volts.
That's
and
cool.
Well, the reason why would you want to get such a thing? Well, I started doubting the veracity of some of my digital voltmeters lately when I was doing some I was doing some work with batteries and lithium batteries where the charging protocols are somewhat sensitive and particular. And I had some disagreements between some voltage readings I was getting, and I wondered, like, wait a minute, how do I know that any of these are correct? And I don't have any voltage standard at all. You just assume that your voltmeters are all correct. Well, I have 2 digital voltmeters. One measured 4.98 on this thing. Another one measured 4.96. It should have been 500. And that shows me already that both of those are a little low. And the one that in particular that I suspected of being low was the one that was in fact a little low. Anyway, I got that, and it's like $35. It's real cheap. Yeah, it's real cheap.
That's cool. So you ordered it, or you put it together, or you just bought it?
Well, no, it's SMA.
Okay.
It's about $35 from a company called Voltage Standard. www.voltagestandard.com. And they have a whole list of goodies. This is one of their cheapest models. They have a one that's more accurate than that, but I'd never, it's just something for just making sure that your digital voltmeters are correct. I used to check a digital voltmeter by putting on a fresh A cell. A D cell, excuse me, on a fresh D cell or AA or one of the alkaline battery, and it should show about 1.58 if they're fresh, and but that's approximate. You can if you have a battery that's fully charged that it's a good battery, you can kind of use that as a voltage standard, but that's really no good. Anyway,
that's very cool. That's excellent. When I was working as a wireline engineer in the oil field. And the one thing we do, of course, after we transport our tools to location, immediately we calibrate them because of anything that can happen. And I'm amazed about all these instruments that we have, the voltmeter, like you're saying. no calibration. You just assume that it's telling you the truth.
Well,
That's like a sin.
They are temperature sensitive and they are age sensitive. The really accurate meter should be recalibrated yearly or no less than every 2 years. These are the 10 to the -6 kind of guys. Now, Dan Vanelli, KS5V. He has a really nice shop where he's put together a whole bunch of really interesting equipment for gas chromatography. He has a bunch of very sensitive temperature instruments that measure temperature down to a fraction of a very small fraction of a degree. And he also has a nice fluke voltmeter that's out to about 6 decimal places. And he says he has to have those recalibrated occasionally. And anyway, it's this is sort of ancillary to the main project I did, which I've completely set up a battery backed up system here with chargers and a big lithium iron phosphate battery and an inverter, et cetera, et cetera.
I think if I can press you maybe to give a presentation to our club in the coming months about just a quick circuit diagram, not a circuit, but a network topology of your charging situation. I'm thinking that would be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I can.
I appreciate that.
Let me see if I can. Can you see that?
Yeah, hold it steady there. Hang on. Okay, raise it up a little bit. There you are. 1,000 watts and something or other.
Yeah, that's the inverter.
Okay.
Okay, I had to take the thing off, but I can do that. Yes, this was all new to me. Battery, DC technology and battery technology and all that. With the flip of the switch, I can go from wall power to battery power for both my computers and my HF rig and my VHF transceiver and linear amplifier. I can't put the HF linear amplifier on it, but I can run everything on that battery for a period of time. It doesn't last, it depends on how much power. It's only 1,200 watt hours only.
Yeah. Well, what you're saying, it sounds like something that Ralph also did a presentation, I believe, a few years ago, or maybe a year and a half. And it was about a generator bypass for his house. So it might have been a different focus for his application, but definitely, for your shack, that would be very interesting because many of us could benefit from something like that.
Yeah, for some reason, there. Yeah, I was thinking about a whole house system also. You have to be real careful with these inverters that go from 12 or 24 volts or even 48 volts to 120 AC because you want to get a pure sine wave inverter. Otherwise, you can cook some sensitive electronic equipment if you put in a modified sine wave or some of these backup generators you buy that have putt-putts on them. They generate really crappy sine waves, and they're very noisy, and they can hurt sensitive electronic equipment or even burn up motors and do all kinds of nasty stuff. You have to be real careful with that.
Absolutely, no question about it. Well, I definitely, I think that know-how, if we could share that with the group, I think that would be definitely a presentation I would be tuning on for later on. Well, guys, I think I smell some food downstairs, so I think I'm going to start wandering out. It smells really, really good back here. But
that's lunch?
Or I don't know, but it smells like rice and beans, and that that's
oh
my
yeah,
favorite,
yeah.
So
Red beans and rice. That's true.
Pardon?
Rice and beans any time of day.
With a
you go to every country in South America, and in every country in South America has got some, or Latin America, some variation of rice and beans, and it's a big thing down there. In Mexico, they make taquitos out of them, and it's all kinds of varieties.
And
okay, well, hopefully this was a good meeting for you guys, and you can definitely hang around here and just exchange some more information.
Is that John? Do I say John N5DWI? John, are you listening? Well,
He's on.
by God, he lived about a half a block from me. Talk about a CW whiz. Good God, that guy's
Really?
a
Yeah, you have to slow it down to 30 for him.
Oh yeah, 60 plus words per minute. He copies
Wow.
paragraphs in his head, not sentences. I mean, this guy's
Wow.
amazing. He's in Central America, or where is he? Costa Rica, or where?
DWI. Yes, I remember talking. I think he said Costa Rica when
Costa
we met
Rica.
him at one
Hello,
point.
John. Maybe just tuned in. Yeah.
The other John, KI5IIK. Are you one of the members of the Southwest? Dang it.
Yeah, right.
The Southwest what?
KI5IIK. Are you part of the Simplex Net down here in the Southwest?
No, I'm not.
Okay. One of the guys recently changed his call sign. I couldn't remember who it was. We've got a nice little group down here. Depending on the night, anywhere from 2 to 8 of us are on the air. It's everybody is within 5 miles of each other as a crow flies. And we're testing antennas, talking about getting together to help one of the new guys set up an antenna. It's just a mutual support. We check in with each other just like we do on Tuesday nights. In fact, that group meets right on the heels of the Oak Forest
What night
Wednesday
do
night
you meet?
Go ahead.
Okay.
146.94 group, or
No, it is a Simplex Net. It's 146.550.
ah, yes. I'm very interested in that also. I bought a linear amplifier for my 2-meter rig to extend my range simplex, but I need to get my antenna another 20 feet higher. I'm working on, as soon as I do that, I will talk about some serious simplex.
I need to get mine up some too. It's only at about 12 or 15 feet above.
Oh no, you gotta get 40
feet.
minimum 30 or 40 feet, and you need to be running about 100 watts. Then you can start getting out to about 20 miles.
We're just looking at who can we talk to if there's a problem. You know, storm comes through, we can stick up an antenna real quick, run on batteries.
I got my battery set up already. That's what the battery thing was all about, was the 2-meter thing. I can run the VHF rig completely on 2 meters. I cooked my Mirage amplifier a few months ago, but I sent it back to MFJ, and they kindly replaced the 2 output transistors and didn't ask me how I cooked it. Well, I was driving a shorted load. I mean, 0 ohms. Yeah, that'll do it. Oh well.
Yeah, I've been loading up on glass mat batteries from Harbor Freight. They're doing a pretty good job for me. I've got one that's a little bit low on voltage, but that's because it was out in the garage in the big freeze last year.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's kind of a variation of lead acid, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's a sealed lead acid. They have a much better drawdown than regular car batteries.
Flatter curve.
Yeah, and I've got 3 100-watt sets of solar panels. So I can run my 7300 at 100 watts very nicely.
For how long?
Well, all day long. If I've got those, I've got 3 batteries, and then I've got those 300 watts of solar panels. I can run all day at 100 watts, or after dark, I can cut back to 50 watts and run for about 4 hours.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Well, as I said earlier, I'm using lithium iron phosphate for my battery. They're kind of pricey. I paid $300 for a 100 amp hour battery, but they're very nice. You know, it has a battery management system in it, so it takes care of those lithium in series. So I'm learning all about this battery technology. It's amazing stuff, and I think we're just on the rising edge of the technology there. It's just going to get better and better.
Yeah, we've seen some real breakthroughs, and I agree with you. I think we're on the cusp of another real big breakthrough. I recently reached out to who was it? Western West Mountain Radio, and they've got 3 different levels of battery monitors. One actually controls the battery. It's got a boost in it. I just got the basic one that shows me how many watt hours I've used, how many amp hours, current draw, the instantaneous draw, and the instantaneous voltage. And I monitor my battery that I'm hooked up to with that. So that's a step improvement for me.
So yeah, this is I don't know which brand you got there, Gary. This is the Bioenno Power, 12 amp hour. It's fairly compact, it's not that big. And it has, I left it on receive mode with a Shigu, which has got a 600 milliamp consumption, and just on receive mode. And I wore it out at 19 hours.
Yeah.
So it went from 19 hours. Now, that's again 600 milliamps, 640, 652 milliamps max. And it drops from 14.5 volts to about 13.8 and pretty much stays flat. Maybe goes to 13.2, and then apparently it dies a sudden death at the end.
Yeah, right.
And then this is that charge controller.
I need to do that same thing with my batteries. See how long they last on receive only.
Yeah, you can tell that a double E did not do this wiring job, so but it works.
Well, one of those glass air, whatever it's called. What are those called, Ralph? Those
glass mat.
Glass mat. Yeah, you can take those down to, like most lead acid, you can take those down to real low discharge. But on the lithiums, you don't want to really do that. You don't want to take them down below 10%. Warning. If you do, you have to bring them up very slowly, because that's the higher internal resistance zone. And if you put a charger on those things and try to blast them with the normal charge that you would in the higher part of the curve, it'll do permanent damage to them. I mean, they'll still work, but you'll shorten their capacity by doing that.
Interesting.
Oh,
and as far as what Ralph was mentioning about the solar panels, that's interesting, huh? 3 solar panels, that's going to give them a lot of, definitely a lot of power. But the one thing though, Ralph, I don't know if...
they've got sets. It's 4 panels of 25 watts each, and a charge controller comes with it, and a little LED area light comes with it, and all the cables that you need. So I've got 3 of those. So that's 12 panels for 300 watts. And I'm paying, it was $180 per set.
And that's a 12-volt system, basically. 12 yeah. So-called 12 volt.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're talking lithium, you're talking 13 volts, by the way. If you go below
the actual voltage out of these solar panels is 14.5.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's a good charging voltage for lithium.
The charge controller checks your battery for you. You can top it off pretty nicely.
Yep. Absolutely. And the other thing I was going to say, Ralph, is that I don't know if you've noticed, but even a little bit of shade on any corner of that solar panel, you start noticing that drop. If you got a little meter.
Well, they're in series. That's the problem. The solar cells are current operated diodes. I mean, they're operating in a current, not a voltage mode. They're not like little batteries. And so if one of the cells goes out, it just screws up the whole panel, or a large part of it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the faults with one of the drawbacks of solar cells.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that when I went to Huntsville State Park and did the POTA, and I took I only have 1 solar panel, and I'd set it up, and I figured, okay, now it's time to videotape this thing so I can put a YouTube together later, maybe. And at that point, I zoomed in on the solar panel, and the solar panel is quite large, but it only had a little corner. I mean, maybe 10%, 5% of the area that was actually with some shade, because the tree had, the sun had moved and the tree was shading it. And that's all it took. You could see a noticeable drop in
That's right.
in your voltage there. So yeah, that's one thing about
Hello,
solar
John.
panels.
Hello, guys. How y'all doing?
This is Gary Sitton, your neighbor, K5AMH.
Oh, yeah.
How you doing?
Oh, staying out of trouble.
I bet.
That's no fun.
Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Where are
Okay.
you, John?
I'm in Houston right now.
Oh, okay.
I've been having a argument with the Costa Rican government about getting a call. Their prefix is TI and or TE, and I want to get TE5 DWI.
Sure.
But if I send TE or TI, I can kind of run it together and make it sound like an M. But I think they're wise to my motives, and they're not letting me do that.
Okay. So you're over on 22nd Street right now?
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay. You're right. You're just a half a block away from me. I didn't know you were in town.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you need to come over and see what I've got over here someday. I'm doing some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, okay, I might do that this afternoon.
Call me first. Yeah, I plan to be around. Give me a shout.
Okay, sounds good.
Amazing. I thought John was in Costa Rica. Excuse me.
Well, what else?
That's all we had for today. I mean, essentially just, does anybody have any problems or any challenges they're facing right now? Maybe we can ask another one of the members. Maybe they've got some good tips for you. Any projects you guys are working on maybe that you have a question about that hasn't been answered so far?
I've got a question for Gary. How do you slow charge something when it's gone way down? I mean, you usually just plug something into a charger.
Well, yeah, you want to make sure it's current limited. That's the whole thing. There are some really fancy lithium chargers that will take you from almost a completely dead lithium battery and bring it back up slowly through that high resistive part of the charge zone, which is 10% or lower. A lot of people don't even go below 15 or 20% on discharging lithium batteries, but certainly 10% is you're asking for trouble down there unless you are very careful about how you recharge it from a deep discharge like that. Lead acid's okay. They can go, they get a real deep discharge, recharge, and so forth. It actually does hurt even a lead acid battery to go from 0 to full charge, doing a full cycle charge discharge. No rechargeable battery likes to do that. Some are more immune to damage than others, but lithium is one you have to be a little careful with.
The glass mat, they tolerate it better than the old plate lead acids.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
glass mat. So what's the physical principle of it? You don't have plates anymore? Is that what that's all about?
It's the stuff in between instead of using a gel.
The dielectric.
Yeah,
Is it a dielectric? It's got to be.
They use
glass.
Supports
in there, but it's embedded in a glass in a fibrous mat of some sort.
I heard. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That supports the electrolyte.
Sure, go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. Instead of gelling it, they have this glass matrix. I heard something very interesting about. You've heard of these big ass capacitors, like a 10 farad and all this stuff as a way of storing energy. And the energy density of these things isn't very good. It's not a good way to store energy. You can do fast discharge and fast charge. They're great for that. You can't damage them really unless you go over voltage. They've got a new technology now that combines lithium, the lithium anode structure and the capacitor. What are they using? I forgot what the whatever the dielectric is they have in these capacitors. But it's a lithium hybrid capacitor, and it has both the advantages of the capacitor and the lithium battery, which is really weird, but they're horribly expensive right now. They're sort of, just to kind of tinker around with, or for small energy storage problems, but they have about twice the energy density of a standard low voltage megafarad capacitor. These use, what's the dielectric those things use? I forgot, some sort of a like barium titanate or something like that. It's
Okay.
I don't know.
No idea. No idea. No, cool.
So I just heard about that. I was, and further the comment that the energy storage and technology, batteries and other things are coming along very nicely now. There's a lot of pressure to do this right and get, reminds me of the story of what happened with Ohm and Ohm's law. He got in real serious trouble because they didn't have any good batteries in the 19th century. They used these things called voltaic cells, which had a very high internal resistance. And he was trying to actually determine the relationship of the current through a resistor and the voltage applied to it. And he was doing so with a voltaic cell that has a very high internal resistance. So the mathematical relationships he were getting were totally screwed up. He didn't get E equals IR, he got something else. And they finally recognized, and no one believed that E equals IR was, or his slightly modified version of it was the way things work. They thought that the current flowing through a resistor was an intrinsic function of the characteristics of the resistor itself and not the voltage applied to it. It's very strange, because they couldn't figure out that part of the resistor was actually in the voltage source. They were using they weren't using good stiff voltage sources to do their lab experiments. And the way it finally was resolved is someone came along and said, well, here's this thing called a thermocouple that generates a voltage source. And it had a much lower impedance than these voltaic cells. And then they began to see, oh, wait a minute, something's going on here. And they finally put two and two together, and Ohm's law finally survived, as well as Ohm himself, who was recognized as a super scientist. And but it was very strange.
I remember seeing in a book somewhere that V equals IR is actually a term of a Taylor expansion. So there's IR, which is a linear term, and then I guess you have, I squared over 2 factorial. It just keeps on going, or something to that effect.
That's true enough, but normally you just use the linear term. It's very, very accurate for 99.99% of most resistors, especially stuff like metal film and stuff like that. They're very stable, and the old carbon resistors, I think, is what you're thinking. Composite carbon resistors. They're not super linear.
Interesting stuff. Very cool. Well, gents, any suggestions on how we can improve the meeting? Other than that, I think I'm going to go back to my my Morse code practicing over here. I'm totally bitten by the CW thing.
Good for you. That's all I had from the time I got my license in 1954. Yikes! And there's nothing but CW for me. Even after I got my general license, it was nothing but CW. I didn't see a sideband rig until the 70s, and I got a used HT130 Hallicrafter's phasing type rig, and modified it major. But by then I had a degree in electrical engineering, and I kind of semi knew what I was doing, and I got on sideband that way. But it took me a long time. It took me 20 years of being a ham before I ever had a microphone in my hand. It was all CW. I mean,
Well, I was impressed yesterday. Last night they had traffic net training on CW. And of course, the traffic net, like the 7290 or the local Houston traffic net, you participate on SSB, easy enough. You copy a radiogram and so on. It's a good skill to have. Well, last night it turns out, it was a surprise to me, they have it on CW, and they have a very specific set of cue signals. You can imagine, I mean, it's got to be a ballet that is, okay, at this point I'm calling out, and then you're supposed to reply with a certain format of your signal, and then they'll call on you and you're supposed to tell them specifically that. If you don't, I can imagine that this thing goes haywire quickly. I mean, it gets confusing as heck.
I've never gotten into that. That sounds pretty tricky.
It does.
Guys, I'm
Anyways,
sorry, I need to back out. I enjoyed all the presentations today, and Gary, I really appreciate your comments on well, several things that you made. See y'all next time. See you in the funny papers.
See you, Ralph.
By the way, Ralph, where is KI5MIK? Mike.
He's right up the street from me, really.
I kind of hoped he would be checking in with us. I haven't heard from him in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, he was supposed to be on. He sent me an email last night, said he would be here today.
Oh, okay. Well, he had the Delta variant of COVID, and then he thinks he got the Omicron variant, and he's got a lot of complicating issues with his his CPOD. So he's kind of worried about all that stuff. I don't know how he's doing. I hope he's okay. I got to give him a call. I see.
And so I was going to send him a note here in a minute to check on him. And I've got his address. I may have to, if I don't hear from him, I'll go by there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to call him. Thanks.
Okay.
73's guys. I'm checking out.
73
See
guys.
ya. I'm
Have a good
checking
one.
out too. I got stuff to do this afternoon with Paul Rubin, so gonna get myself together. Guys, very good to see you, and see you next time.
Yeah, same here, guys. I'm going to go back to my CW practice. So great talking to you guys. We'll see you next time.